Hey, what's up, Liam? Just wanted to give you an update on the new DFS page. I think it's pretty much ready for deployment, or at least testing by some users. If we wanted to add like a DFS new tab and keep the current one going, just in case there's any bugs. But as far as I can tell, it's in pretty good shape. Um, there was only some minor changes. Of course, it took a good amount of work, but obviously the biggest change here at the top, we now have the option to kind of switch between slates. So if we wanted to do the full slate or any other smaller slates on Sunday, we can optimize specifically for that. I left the filter component the same, didn't make any changes here. In the player pool section, I made a couple of changes, including giving the user the ability to adjust projections to their liking. Um, might need to adjust the style here to make this a little more obvious that you can do that. We have the lock and exclude columns that will give the user the ability to lock in a player that they feel really strongly about if it doesn't show up in the optimal, or the ability to exclude players they think might not belong in the optimal. So if we didn't like Jane Daniels here in the quarterback spot because he's kind of questionable for this week, we can just exclude him, re-optimize, and now it's going to punch in Trevor Lawrence. Made some changes down here. Um, we can, if we have a few guys excluded, we can clear it just by clicking the exclude header button. Um, Similar for the locking players. You can't have a player locked who's excluded, so those will toggle automatically. I did put in a check to make sure that the constraints are valid on the back end and the Django server. So, for example, here, if we try to optimize a lineup with two quarterbacks, we're only allowed one. We'll just get kind of this generic optimizer constraints invalid, and just reminding the user to maybe check to make sure they don't have too many positions locked, and then they can try to optimize again. So that's pretty much it for the classic side. At some point, we'll try and get a tab for settings to open a settings dialog to give the user even a little bit more power if they want to stack players from certain teams or certain quarterback receiver combinations. But that'll take a little longer. I think this is a good start that we can get out to people to use maybe in week 9 or 10. The showdown section or component, I generally left the same, except now we kind of have the optimal lineup container over here. Again, we can adjust as we see fit. If we don't like Aaron Jones in the captain spot, we can X him out there. In the player pool, we're going to have duplicates of each player because we're going to have a row for the player captain and the player flex. And I left the optimal showdown lineups as is. I think this is convenient for people who just want to get a quick look at what the optimals are for every single game, as opposed to, otherwise they would have to go through each player pool and check. But at least up here, they can kind of see what the default optimals are. If there are any changes made to the optimal in the containers down here, that won't be reflected up here. So these are just kind of like the default optimals with no changes, and then if the user doesn't like it, they can come down here and make some changes and re-optimize the way they see fit. So that's pretty much it. There's a couple of minor bugs. I was having trouble getting some of these columns to sort correctly. For example, the floor ceiling column, it just triggered there once and it didn't even sort. Ascending to descending, same thing with the ceiling. And then the projections column, it's like you have to click it twice before it'll sort properly. So a couple of minor bugs like that, but big picture wise, in terms of usability, I think this is in a good spot. But let me know what you think whenever you have a chance.